Good morning and welcome to week three of the 2024 Startup Business Festival. As we move into this new week, our focus shifts to the vital role of entrepreneurship for economic transformation. This week is dedicated to exploring how entrepreneurs can drive economic growth, foster innovation, and create inclusive opportunities that empower communities and nations alike. Today, we kick off with an essential topic leveraging data for informed business decision making. In a rapidly evolving business environment, data has become one of the most valuable resources available to entrepreneurs. From market insights to operational efficiencies, understanding and utilizing data analytics can mean the difference between success and stagnation as a business. Today's session, we dive into how data can empower entrepreneurs to make strategic decisions and identify emerging trends and create solutions that align with customers' needs and the market demands. We'll explore practical strategies for data collection, analysis, and application, showcase how startups can harness this power to transform their businesses and contribute to broader economic transformation. Thank you for joining us as we embark on this important week of discovery and discussion. Here's to an inspiring day where we uncover the tools and insights that turn data into catalysts for startups and entrepreneurial growth. Help me introduce my speaker for today, Manuela.
Hi, thank you very much for that introduction. Yes, and I look forward to today's session. So, today we're going to be capturing much of what has been mentioned. We'll be looking at the conversation of data, why data is important, why data, sorry, is important for startups, for business owners, and how you can leverage it. And we're going to have let me say, a more special and centered focus on market research, how to go about conducting your market research in a way that covers specific areas that are beneficial to you. And so, yes, that's what we'll be covering in today's session.
All right, let me first ask you to introduce yourself so that anybody who's listening, who is joining us today, can find out who is this impactful speaker that we are speaking to.
Okay. All right. So, my name is Manuela Sikchi. I'm from Ghana, actually. And I am part of an organization called Musla. So MOOSLA, and basically we work with startups. We work with organizations such as Startup BizFest to help entrepreneurs, to guide them and to provide them with certain resources and support along their journey. And so that's what we do. We currently have a growing presence across Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya. And so I'm really actually glad to be here. Once again, my name is Manuela, and I look forward to today's session.
All right, let me hand over to you. You can go through your presentation and go through how we can leverage data for informed business decision making. Off to you.
Okay, thank you very much once again. Okay, so once again, hi everyone, welcome. And today we're going to have a very centered and special focus on the conversation of business fundamentals with regards to data and leveraging data for informed business decision making. Now, when we talk about the conversation of data, it's quite extensive. There are lots of areas, there are lots of facets and fields that come with data. But for today's session, we're going to focus on conversations that make it easy to understand certain principles and basic concepts of data. And then we're also going to look at specifically, as I mentioned, market research and basically how you can leverage that type of data collection to improve your business, the areas to look at. And we'll probably also look at some examples along today's session. And so, without much further ado, let's get right into it. And so, we're going to start with introduction to data. Obviously, what is data? I know most of us are already familiar with this, but just to make sure that we are all on the same page and we're all on the same, let's say, terms with regards to the conversation of data or entering into the conversation, we often define data as raw information consisting of facts and figures. And usually this comes in the form of factual information but unprocessed, and it can be collected from observations, from experiment, from measurement, and different data collection strategies and methods. Now, data acts as the building blocks for generating insight and informed decision making. And why this matters is because it provides the foundation for strategic decision making and for problem solving. And so, as most of you may already be familiar, we have raw data, which provides us with the facts, and then we process it over time and analyze it to turn it into meaningful information. At the end of the day, it's what we use that meaningful information that makes the actual difference. So, for you as a startup owner, for you as a business owner, you can have access to data, but then you also have to make sure that you're able to make sense of it to information stage and then leverage information to expand your horizons with your business. When we look at data, we're going to look at the types of data. As you may be familiar, we have most commonly primary data and secondary data. We also quantify the quantitative and qualitative aspect of data as a type because under primary data or secondary data, you could have quantitative or qualitative types of data. And so what we'll do is we'll look at each grouping and how they manifest in terms of the conversation of data. So for starters, we have primary data, and this is data that is extracted directly from the official source. That's what we call primary data. So when you go out there and you conduct interviews with entrepreneurs, with customers, with stakeholders, the interview data that you collect for the purpose for which you collect it for is primary data. You collected it directly from the source to use it for meaningful decision making or information. So you go out there and you collect primary data on what customers like the most about your product. Whatever insights that they give you that informs what you should keep doing about your business or not is primary data at that point that you collected directly from the source through either interviews, through surveys, through even focus groups. And then we also have observation, which is also another primary aspect of data collection, where you find yourself in the setting that is of concern to you and you observe to collect data, direct data on how things work in that setting. And so that's primary data. It's collected directly for the source, from the source, with a specific purpose in mind to leverage that data or information. And then we have secondary data. Now, with secondary data, it's quite interesting. So, this refers to information that has already been collected, that has already been processed and published by someone else, typically for a purpose different from the specific research analysis at hand. And so when you think of secondary data, that's the data that you go on Google and you find articles, you find research, you find information. It's already been published. Somebody has already gone out there, has collected the data for a particular purpose, and has analyzed it and made it available for you. And then you can repurpose that data for other functions, for other reasons, for other purposes. Now that we've covered the differentiation between primary data and secondary data and what that looks like, we'll go a bit deeper into secondary data, but specific to your business. So we can have secondary data sources that are internal and external when we're looking at secondary data in terms of your business or your startup. It's very important to be able to differentiate secondary data in terms of the internal aspects, the part that you control as a business owner, and external. Okay, so for internal secondary data, what can that look like? These types of data can easily be found within your organization. So they include sales records, past sales data such as monthly revenue, seasonal sales patterns, customer purchase histories. This is data that's been collected over a period of time. Although it was, let's say, originally gathered to record sales, it can be analyzed for trends, customer preferences, and future projections. Or customer feedback and surveys. It's internal to your organization. You go out there, collect primary data, come back, process, analyze it, and store it. At that point, let's say you published it internally in your company, but can revisit that information or that data that you have processed in the future for further analysis. At that point, it becomes secondary data being reused to serve other purposes or other functions. So if you collected customer feedback to understand what people like and do not like about your product, you can go back again to revisit some of the crucial points that were mentioned to see what other analysis can be conducted from it. We also have website analytics as well. It's specific to your business, it's internal data. Then, what does external data look like? So, external secondary data can look like financial records, right? Um, no, not so. Financial records still fall under internal in terms of financial records to your business, but we can also have financial records that are external. And so that is publications, public financial records of competitors. Let me put it that way. Yes, publicly available financial records, such as annual reports of competitors, provide insight into competitor performance. So, external secondary data refers to data that has been collected and published by sources outside of your organization, but prove helpful to you and to your decision making process. So, whereas in an example of internal secondary data could be your own personal or your own business financial records, external will be that of your competitors. And then perhaps your analysis is to compare where you are on your business journey and what it looks like in terms of your competition. Perhaps you want to use that for benchmarking, or you want to use that to understand what are the different factors that are contributing to a particular conversation and how different are they applying in your business as compared to competitors. So that's one use of internal and external secondary data when it comes to startup business owners. But it's key to tell the difference when it's data you control and data that's coming out, and how each data serves different purposes. And so we have industry reports. That's reports published by research firms. They are secondary data for businesses and can be collected by third party firms. Um, and could prove helpful to you depending on what you need them for or what it will tell you about the industry, market forecast, examples like that. We also have government publications and databases. And so that's just a glimpse of primary data and secondary data, what that looks like. And we also went into what secondary data could entail, internal and external. Now let's talk about qualitative and quantitative, which was the second type that we noted. When you talk about qualitative data, we're referring to non-numeric descriptive information that provides insight into qualities, characteristics, and experiences. It captures the why and the how behind behaviors, attitudes, or trends. And then we have quantitative data, which is numeric data. It is measurable, it can be analyzed statistically, it captures the what, the how many, the how often aspect, making it more objective and straightforward to analyze. And so putting this into some sort of better perspective or example, when we look at qualitative data and we look at quantitative data could look like this. Um, or we could start with quantitative data, where you go out and you want to find out how many customers are purchasing your product during festive seasons. Which festive seasons have the highest turnout of product purchases? So if you collect the data, let's say across 4 festive seasons that are recognized, you observe that there are high peak trends during those seasons where the average number of purchases are higher than on the normal day. Let's say validating your intuition or validating your observation that during festive seasons, for your type of product or business model, you tend to get higher purchase orders or higher requests or higher customers coming through, of which you could retain most of them after the festive season. Quantitative data will provide you with the numbers that confirm that fact. That yes, it is true. During festive seasons, let's say you get 50% higher than the usual average you get on normal days. And with the festive season, even particularly Christmas, is your highest as compared to all the other three. That's the type of data that quantitative data will give you, the numbers. Then what qualitative data will give you is helping you understand why that is so. Qualitative data explains the why and the how that comes to be. So if you are observing that type of trend in your business, you need to understand why. Being able to understand that could help improve your service offerings or how you position yourself better for the festive seasons. And so The explanation could possibly go through interviews that during festive seasons, your product no longer maybe becomes a product for just one individual, but perhaps the type of product that you provide is one that families like to share with themselves. And so whenever they gather together, when one person has it, it's something that everybody has to have. And so festive seasons make your product become a family affair. When one person buys, she has to buy also for her mom, for her dad, and for everybody so that it's just right for everybody. Now, this is just an example, but that gives you insight and explains why in those seasons you have peak periods. The purchases are no longer individual purchases, but become family purchases. So that's just an example of what quantitative and qualitative data can look like. Quantitative data is numbers, it gives you the facts that prove the point. And qualitative data is what backs those facts, helps you understand those facts, gives you insight. And what you do with those insights as an entrepreneur is very important and very key. It is what can make the difference. And so now, when you understand that perhaps your products are being purchased in terms of family affairs, you could use that insight to come up with perhaps family packages, and then have them in different categories so that families now have more options and feel like your service is being catered better to them and to their need areas. And that's once again just an example. So this is also just an example in practice. A startup might collect qualitative data through customer interviews to understand why users prefer one feature over another. It might also collect quantitative data through surveys that quantify customer satisfaction scores, enabling the business to track trends over time. So, in the first scenario, qualitative data is collected through customer interviews to understand why users prefer one feature over another. Now, in this scenario, that means that we already have the quantitative data that shows that there are about, let's say, 3 or 5 features, and it seems like these particular features are more preferred by customers over the others. Now, qualitative data is going in to understand why that is so. Then in the second scenario, quantitative data was gathered to quantify customer satisfaction scores. So the quantitative data will collect data that helps the entrepreneur to know that, okay, fine, these are customers' ratings of your service in terms of satisfaction. And if the ratings are good, if they're average, if they're bad, in terms of that level of consistency, qualitative data would help you understand why that is so. Quantitative data will bring it to your attention that these are the customer satisfaction scores. On average, about 50 or 80 or 60% of your customers are satisfied or they're not satisfied with your service. And so I believe that even as we are going through the different types of data, how data can manifest, and the slides that we've already gone through, it probably has brought to your attention some of the different ways data is important to your business. But then we're going to capture it here in this slide, where we look at 5 key ways that data is of importance to your business and why we are even having this session today, why we find it important to put together a session to go over something that perhaps you may already be aware of, but to draw your attention to how best you can leverage data. Data is important for business owners, especially for startups, because one, it improves better decision making. Data can help inform your choice and reduce guesswork. So, the thing about navigating yourself in the business spaces, most of the times we work a lot with intuition and guesswork. While that may not necessarily be a negative aspect to things, what we are saying is if you can have access to data, or if there's data that can improve your decision making, why not go for it? It's good to have intuition and it's good to be able to try and figure out a way around the system. But then, if there's also data available that could improve or enhance your understanding of that system, improve your understanding of your market, improve your understanding of what worked for your competitors and what didn't work for them, and how you're positioning yourself in the space, you are to some extent at a better advantage having access to that information and including it in your decision making as compared to just basically working with intuition. So, data informs choices and reduces guesswork. It provides you with the fact and provides you with additional information that helps you to understand what works and what doesn't work in the space. And even in areas where data may not necessarily be all that much or may be lacking, also tells you something. It tells you that that space perhaps is a space that is still growing and so may have more risk factors as compared to spaces where information is more readily available. That alone can also help and guide and inform how you navigate that type of space and the type of risk that you take. Then, two, we have problem solving. Data helps you identify challenges and areas for improvement. At times, you can be consistently working at a particular solution or consistently working in a particular space. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I'm not too sure what happened. But back to point two, you can be working in a particular space and you may not necessarily notice it in the beginning, but there could be trends, there could be things that may be going on, there could be areas that require improvement, or certain challenges that you may be facing, of which you may have already come to terms with or are yet to come to terms with. What data helps you do is unearth those issues. Figure out, are there challenges? What is causing those challenges? Where are those challenges coming from? Who is seeing those challenges? Who is complaining about those challenges? What are the areas that can be improved in your business? What are the areas that can be improved in your service? And so, obviously, with these types of scenario, often at times, primary data where you employ customer interviews or qualitative data strategies and quantitative data strategies come into play alongside secondary data. Then we have performance evaluation, another very important aspect for business owners, especially when you're growing, and that is collecting your own data over time to track your progress and performance metrics. So, this is where it's really great to set KPIs or to set standards or benchmarks and then follow your progress over time. So, if you developed a solution and let's say your goal is to expand customer acquisition over a period of time, right? What strategies are you putting in place to access customers for your MVP product or for your product that you've put out in the market? And if you're doing something like that, it's always good to track progress. Maybe in month one, you didn't have any customers. In month two, you got a referral from a family member, and that referral turned into two more customers. That is data. In month two, you got three customers. Month three, the questions you'll be asking yourself is, what can I do to double three to six? And then from there on, if I am having six, how can I double six to 12? Those are types of conversations you can have with yourself, but it's always good to come to terms with what exactly it looks like in your business. So, performance evaluation is the conscious effort of leveraging data to track your progress and performance metrics, where you set targets. Often at times, I see that entrepreneurs hesitate to set targets because they feel like it pressures them. Then, setting targets is a very healthy and helpful way of being able to give yourself something to look forward to. Even if, let's say, you are in the development stage of your business model, you're now developing your product, you can still set targets, perhaps timeline targets, that let's say by this time you want to be able to hold yourself accountable, that at least you've been able to produce this version of your product, and then by this timeline you should have tested it out with friends and family to get conclusive feedback as to whether you have something substantial enough to enter into the market with. Then we have process optimization. So that's another very important and helpful aspect of data. And so you're already running your business is either taking off, is getting ready to scale, it's in the process of growing, or it's in the early startup stage. It doesn't matter. At any point in time, it's good to be able to tell what exactly you're doing, what are the operations, what are you working at, how are you providing or delivering your services, and how can you streamline and improve those operations. Data helps you with that. If you structure your business to consciously collect that type of data, you can be able to optimize. So if perhaps it takes you about, or it takes you and your team or your staff about 8 different steps or 5 different steps to develop or deliver a service to your customer, data would help you identify those steps and those stages and see if there are ways to cut it off in a very efficient and optimized manner, such that maybe you could even cut them down to three. Leveraging data, you see perhaps letting customers come and then join a long line before they order from you is not necessary. The data is showing that it's even more time consuming, and at times you lose customers if they fall off the line. And so perhaps this is a good opportunity time to implement an order online processing, and then perhaps have a backup team member whose job is to package those orders before you come for pickup, and then perhaps give clients the option to do in-person pickup or to have it delivered to their doorstep. But then you cut off the stage of having to engage the customer to come all the way and then now join a line before they could probably get your service. Process optimization is being able to collect that data, look at and map out what the stages look like for your business, for your service, for whatever area you're focused on, and then employ effective brainstorming strategies with data to optimize your process in a more efficient manner. So this is just an example of how process optimization can be applied, where you can cut down multiple stages or steps by being informed about which steps can be rendered redundant and which steps can be better improved and joined together as one, and which steps could also use effective technology strategies to make the process easier and faster. And obviously, finally, understanding your customers. It's one of the most powerful aspects of data. Data helps us to understand our customers. We gain insight into our customer needs and our customer behaviors. And so I believe that this is just a brilliant opportunity for me to drop an example about understanding customers or understanding target markets, just for us to pick up the energy. But then we have a scenario where there was a team of people that were sent to a remote village to observe the issues that the people were facing and then try and render some sort of solution for them. Particularly, it was water related. So, in that particular remote village, they were having issues with water, and it was definitely affecting a lot of conversations like hygiene, which was resulting to sicknesses and diseases, and was manifesting in different ways, right? And so they went in, looked at the situation, realized that this was a problem, and then they surveyed the land, surveyed the area, and realized that they could develop boreholes. They could develop boreholes for the village to improve the situation there, right? So they develop the borehole, get the water from the ground, and then they would just pump up the water so that the people could use the water. Now, obviously, they've entered into a situation, they felt like they figured out the solution, and they went right at it, started developing the boreholes. I think they developed about two or three at different areas with one core one in the village center. Now they go and then they come back later, about a few weeks after implementing the solution, and guess what? Nobody was using the solution. So the issue exists. There's a problem. They are struggling with the water conversation in they're struggling with the water conversation in their village. The people have come in, they've developed a solution for them, but the people are not using the solution. And so it required them having to go back to the drawing board to understand what exactly the problem was. Why would they still carry heavy buckets of water from the river that were contaminated and be using those old solutions when a new solution had come out and was proven? Now, it took taking their time to go back into the space and then now do some sort of research work, interact with their target audience to understand why the people for which they had developed the solutions for were not using those solutions. And this is what the data provided, or the information that they collected and analyzed provided, that changed the dynamics of the conversation. It so happens that in that particular remote village, the people that usually fetch water or that handle water, the household affairs, and everything were usually females, right? And even if the females were not doing it, their children would do it. And usually, even the children were female children. Now, the borehole system that they had designed required that um, I'm trying my best to explain it, but then required that they have to stand on, I think, a pressure point or stand on a pump and then jump on it for the water to come up and then fill. And their husbands will not allow them. That simple. They were in a system or in an environment where it was, the cultural dynamics is, um, if my husband is not okay with me being on something that causes some sort of movement that is considered as not necessarily, um, let me say, good for a married woman or good for a young lady to be doing. It's as though they perceived it as they were dancing on the water. Let me put it that way. And the husbands will not allow their wives to go and dance on a machine or dance on a system to, let's say, attract other male interest. And so that was simply it. They were in an ecosystem that had a different cultural system and a different cultural setup. That cultural setup influenced the way in which they approached and the way in which they reacted to that particular solution in that environment. Not that the solution was bad, not that the solution wasn't good, but respective to that particular scenario and situation, that was the case. The husbands will not allow their wives or their young daughters to go and stand on a pump that requires them to jump and dance on it, attracting other male interest other than themselves. They lived in a more conservative environment, and so conservative principles were held at high. And so now, with that information, they had a better understanding of the cultural ecosystem, of the environment for which they were building the solution for, and they went in to redesign the solution such that it made it easier, it made it more acceptable, culturally acceptable for the women who are the main users of that solution to be able to use the solutions without having any issues from their partners. And that changed the dynamics of the conversation. That is just a very particular, but I would say specific example of understanding your consumers or understanding customers in this scenario, understanding the user. And so I would say that's just an example. There are obviously other more relatable examples where in your business, it takes understanding your customer and your consumer to be able to design specific solutions or specific models for them. And so these are just what we would call data stages. And with regards to data stages, it's just an idea of what the process for data can look like. So you go out, you collect the data. You obviously have to have the data stored in a particular area, in a safe area, in a place that you can easily go back to, in a place either on the cloud that has the necessary cybersecurity measures. And so you also have to think about data storage. And then we come to data processing, being able to clean the data, make sense of the data, analyze the data, and most importantly, visualize the data. So, this is something that people often or entrepreneurs sometimes miss out. They believe that once they've collected the data and they've analyzed the data, they have to try and work with that. Whilst it might provide insight, it's very helpful to always prioritize how you present the data, even for yourself. Sometimes you could just take a simple tabulated form that has key data points and key insight points to guide how you go about things. Or it could be, if you're somebody that's really good with visualizing, it could be generating the necessary charts, the necessary bar charts, the necessary pie charts, or data visualization tools to improve the way you go in and go over your data or share with stakeholders. Most importantly, how you interpret data at the end of the day. How do you apply it to insights to inform your business strategy? And then how do you archive data or dispose it depending on what it looks like for you at that point, for either future use? And so this is just basically simple steps around data stages. And so we finally come to, I would say, the second half of the focus for today. We're looking at market research for startup founders. The reason why we decided to focus on market research under the data, um, you know, under the data arm, is because market research is a very important aspect of conversation for startup founders, for early stage businesses, and for SMEs, growing SMEs. We have scenarios where sometimes you can have a startup do very good market research at the beginning that is able to inform the way they navigate the space. And then we can have scenarios where startups or business owners would completely ignore market research in the beginning and then find themselves trying or scrambling to collect data at different points when they are realizing gaps as they go along their business. And then we have scenarios where founders focus on key aspects of the market research in the beginning and figure out or work on the rest as they grow, as they go on in their business. Either ways, market research will always show up. It would show up either consciously or unconsciously. When you face data gaps, you find yourself going out to try and find information that helps you to fill those gaps or understand the space. And even if you don't find yourself in that scenario, if you take a more structured approach where you figure out things before you go, it just improves the way you navigate the space right from the start. And so when we look at market research, what is the goal of market research for you as a business owner? Number one, market research is often used to validate demand. We want to ensure that if you're going into a space and you're convinced that, look, there's a market, I have a product and there's a market for my product, people will buy it. Market research helps you to validate that demand, that that's not something you're just assuming, that there's a real market for the product or service you're providing. Market research helps you to understand the competition. When you're going into the space, are there existing players in the space? And if there are, how do you position your startup to uniquely stand out to improve your chances of being able to excel in that space? And then we have being able to identify gaps and opportunities. Market research exposes unmet needs or emerging trends that you can leverage on to see how to position your business or how to deliver to clients in a way that meets need areas. And then optimize marketing and sales channel. This is also a very key aspect of market research. Market research helps you to understand what your different marketing and sales channel options should look like or can look like, and provide you information and insights that help you to choose the right channels for growth. And so, if these are all very helpful and important, goals of market research that all sound great, why do founders skip market research? And these are common reasons that we observed over time. Number one, time constraint. It's quite time intensive. Collecting the data, looking for the data, sourcing through right data sources, having to conduct some sort of primary data in some areas because you can't just leverage on secondary data to be able to come up with informed decision making. Number two, we have budget limitations. For some scenarios, market research may um, require the enticement of getting a professional researcher on board. Whilst we encourage entrepreneurs to start with what they can, for some entrepreneurs or for some startup founders, they would like to, let's say, replace time with money. Replacing time with money means getting a professional researcher, which can be budget intensive. And so, for some entrepreneurs, where time constraints is an issue for them, or finding the time to do the necessary market research becomes a conversation of battle for them, and they consider bringing a professional researcher on board, budget limitations meets them at that route. And then we also have a very common aspect, the overconfidence bias. Founders may believe that they already understand the market. I already understand the market. I already have an idea of the market. I am sure that I know what I am doing. I already have a feeling that this is going to work. You may or may not know it, but this actually is a contributing factor to why you do not prioritize market research until it becomes an unmet need or gap that you're trying to understand and you're not figuring out through your intuition. And then impatience to launch. The pressure to get to the market quickly can often at times override the research phase. And then finally, quite similar to overconfidence bias, but over reliance on intuition. Founders often feel their personal insights are sufficient enough to go into the market. Sounds risky, but it's what most founders end up doing. And so we have scenarios where they would go into the space with personal insights and intuition, but then still have to put in the work that was delayed to navigate the space better so they can position right, especially for experimental products that are not necessarily widely available already in the market yet. Other times, too, the market is now maturing to be able to recognize the benefits of such products that are being developed. And so, what did we do here? What we did here is we came up with a sample basic market research guide um, to help you out. The reason why we did this is because, look, we understand that when people think about market research, you think about something vast, you think about something that's everywhere. What exactly should your market research look like, or what are the key points and areas you should include in your market research that can make a difference for you? So what we did is we came up with a very simple tabulated guide that just pinpoints key areas or different segmentations of market research and how each segmentation serves a need, so that moving forward you can consider this in your business. You can look at areas where you've already completed those aspects, and then look at areas where you have to improve those aspects to enhance the way you're going about the space. And so let's talk about the template here. We're looking at market research and we've divided it into three columns. We have the market research area that you should cover, and we've also looked at, for startup founders especially, where primary sources can apply and secondary sources can apply. Now, I'd like to add that this particular template was designed for startup founders but can be used by SMEs, growing businesses, or businesses that are already in an advanced stage in your business model but lack certain market research areas. But the reason why it's very helpful to point this out now is because you notice that for some areas, the primary source aspect is missing. Yes, this is because for startups in some areas, they're now starting out in the space. And so, in terms of primary sourcing of information, it's not necessarily applicable to them till they've gone into the space, develop something, and they can engage with people on that area. And then for some areas, it's just simply secondary source that applies. So what I'd like you to do is, if you want to use this template as a guide to benchmark the areas that you've covered in your market research and the areas that you haven't covered, just look at if perhaps the primary source can apply directly to you, where you can actually gather direct information from stakeholders, customers, to fill that area beyond secondary source data. If not, this template is still perfectly fine. It just points out the market research area you should cover as a business owner and how primary sources and secondary sources can manifest. So see which works for you and which perhaps also applies in the startup stage as well for you. When you look at your market research, there are 8 areas that at least you should have covered in your market research. And these areas include: one, industry analysis. Having a grip of the industry or having an understanding of the industry advances your concept of how you're positioning in that space and what the opportunities in that industry look like for you. Are you in the right industry? And how do you navigate around that industry? The better you know as a startup founder, the more enhanced your navigation of that space is and how you go about positioning your business. Then, secondly, your market research should be able to cover target market and customer segmentation. How well do you know your target markets? There can be an available market, but who are you targeting? And the people that you are targeting, how are they segmented? Your target market being segmented improves the way you prioritize different customer segments. There are customer segments that are most likely to provide higher levels of income and revenue for you as compared to others. That is information that informs the way you assess some level of, let me say, effort, resources, and direction to different target market segments. And so your market research should be able to cover this area. Your market research should also cover competitive analysis. You're in a space, there are existing players, there are players that are also entering into the space. Who are you competing with? What do your competitors look like? What are your competitors doing differently from you? And how do you stand out from your competitors? Even if you haven't figured out how you stand out from your competitors, it's something you'll figure out as you grow. It's good to have an understanding of who you are in the space with. Your market research should also cover your customer needs and pain points. So, beyond target market and customer segmentation, this goes deeper to understand What are the pain points of my customers that I can look at to inform or improve the way I go about delivering my solution? What are their need areas? How can I incorporate that in my marketing strategies? And then we have pricing analysis. It's always good to understand where you are on the pricing scale. Are you higher up? Are you niche pricing? Are you average pricing? And what does that look like for in terms of how your customers in the space receive your pricing as compared to competing pricing? If you're entering into a market, are you entering into a market with a low pricing strategy, with a goal or with a plan to average out over time? What does that look like? And to have a good pricing analysis is also an important and key aspect of your market research. In fact, it's something that you may consciously or unconsciously do, but then being able to set aside some sort of focus on what that can look like also improves some external or additional considerations you will make in the pricing analysis. And then we have distribution and sales channels. After you figure out your target market, your customer segment, their needs and their pain points, if you set aside time to develop your market research, how to reach them, it's also a very effective way of improving your strategy. You can know who your customers are, but how or where do you find them? Where do they spend most of their time? So, if let's say, for example, your solution is one that is a community based solution, right? And maybe most of your customers are working age people, people who are parents, who have kids, who spend their time in the gym. It's good to know where to find your customers because that can improve your distribution, sales, and marketing channels and strategies. You could just enter into the space and be marketing to anyone and everywhere, or you could figure out that aspect of your market research that helps you to align your efforts specifically with what's most likely to work for you. Perhaps your customers may be in point A, point B, and point C from time to time. If you go and you engage in those areas, you'll have a better understanding of them, where they spend their time on, engage with them, get them to refer your products or get them to try your products for test trials and give you feedback based on which they can even refer to other customers, a starting point based on which you could then now market or do A, B, C, and D. You can enter into the space and be everywhere and nowhere till you figure it out, or design your market research from the start to make these types of considerations. So, this is also a set point under your market research that you need to take into consideration. And market trends and future opportunities. For this one, this is an aspect of your market research that you probably have to continuously be doing. It's always good to be on top of the market trends and what the opportunities lie in the space. Are you in a space that is rapidly being transformed by technology? Do you want to be ahead of that technology game or be behind? And how is that going to affect your ability to scale over time and your ability to compete in the space? You do not want to be reactive, you want to be proactive. And then finally, regulatory and environmental factors. This is also something that you have to be monitoring over time. Regulations change over time, regulations are updated over time. Right now, we have new and more improved considerations that are more environmentally friendly. We have considerations that are better informed by conversations now that have come up through AI, through cybersecurity, through different types of considerations. How does that affect you? How does it affect your space? What are the regulations in that space? And sometimes being able to have a grasp of these types of things can improve your ability to contract or bid for certain, should I say, government opportunities if your business is related or aligned in that space. And opportunities such as that, because once you're aligned with the regulations of that space, you're better positioned to be able to deliver in that space without having regulatory hurdles. And so I would say that these are the 8 pointers that you need to consider under your market research. And so for point one, under industry analysis, um, for secondary sources, these are where or some ideas of how you can source the type of data. You can look for industry reports, you can look for government publications, publicly available data. So in this scenario, it's just an example, but respective to your industry, you find data that could inform you about the industry, how the industry is growing, how the industry is expanding, what are the opportunities and prospects for that industry. What does the available data say, and how does that even align with what you assume or what your intuitions are about that space? Does that space have a capacity for market growth that can accommodate you over time? Is it something that you can focus on and position in and scale over time? Or is that market too small? Or is that market big enough? These are questions you need to be able to answer beyond, I feel like this is the space I have to be in.
Then we have target market and customer segmentation. So for that, especially for startup owners, you can have primary sourcing and secondary sourcing. So primary is where you conduct primary research with your target customers or potential customers if you're yet to develop or put out your product, but you have an idea of what your customers should look like. And get insight into what their needs, what their behaviors are, information that informs you to segment your customers. Perhaps if I'm looking at my customers, I may have to segment them in terms of age, because my customers apparently that are younger age group react differently to my products and services as compared to the elderly age group. With the elderly age group, I have to add more considerations for, let's say, technological adaptations. They most of the times prefer the traditional ways of getting things done. So I would like to add that option for them if it's what they're most comfortable with, even though, let's say, my model is technologically advancing for the younger age group. These are considerations you can only make when you've studied your market and you think it is worth making that type of consideration. How well can you understand your target market and how well can you segment your customers? Primary data can inform you, secondary data can also inform you. Secondary data can look like social media and web analytics, competitor reviews. You can go onto competitor websites, review their feedback on competitor websites, find out, okay, fine, maybe when you go, some potential customers or customers will say, I liked this product offering, but I didn't like the way the let's say I didn't like the way the setup was designed. It made it very difficult for me to understand, and I often have to drop off in the middle of the process and get my grandson or get my friend to come and help me. It wasn't easy to understand as one would expect. And let's say that your product design is quite similar to that competing product design. That's information that can impact you because it's requiring that you have, let's say, a more user friendly interface if it's a technological product, or you have a more customer friendly design. And that's just what information can look like. It can inform you that in terms of your target market, these are the areas that affect you. These are the qualities that are similar to them in terms of age groups and all of that. Competitive analysis as well. Um, these are sources you can go to review sites. You can go to platforms like Reddit, find out how people react to competitors, who people view as top competitors in the space. Go to competitor websites, find out information about them, read industry reports that also provide insights into who the competitors are and how they're positioned in the space. There are different ways you can collect secondary source data for competitive analysis. Customer needs and pain points. Similar to target market analysis and customer segmentation, you can find primary source data, you can find secondary source data. Um, Pricing analysis, you can talk to people, conduct willingness to pay surveys where you give them, let's say, different pricing categories and ask them if you had package A and it charged this, and package B and it charged this, and package C and it charged this, which one are you likely to go for? Okay, I will go for package C. Even though it's the most expensive package, I like the fact that it's designed in this and this way. It's more different from A and B. So I don't mind being inconvenienced a little to get this particular package. Or I like package B more because the pricing is just fair enough. And even though I don't get all the features, I get the most important features. This is helpful information that you can collect from customer interviews that can inform your pricing. It helps inform your willingness to pay surveys are examples where you find people's potential willingness to pay on average. Maybe 70% will go for package A, or unexpectedly 70% will go for package B, or 30% will go for package C. These are ways you can collect data for price analysis. And then you could also do the secondary aspect, which is very important, where you find out what is the average price in the market. Am I off scale? Am I within scale? And even if I am higher pricing, how do I accommodate for that pricing? What do I do differently that would help customers come to terms with my pricing? Is it a unique or more premier service offering that would accommodate for the additional price offering I am given? It's good to know where you stand on the price scale. So finding out competitors' pricing perhaps on their website or market industry reports and comparing that to even data you collect for your customers informs pricing analysis. You can get both primary data sources and secondary data sources. Distribution and sales channels, primary sources, talking to customers, finding out where they spend most of their times. You've profiled your customer, you have an idea of your target market customer, perhaps these are places you can find them, or these are the most active social media platforms that your type of customers use. Perhaps your type of customers use LinkedIn better or more preferably than Instagram or than Facebook. As a business owner, it's important for you to know this type of information, do the work to be sure about this type of information, data that backs your confidence in this type of information, and then test it out in the space to see how the turnout goes. You can also apply secondary source data as well, where you can find data that is readily available on the internet that can inform your distribution and your sales channel. So I see that my time is up and we're about rounding up. But yes, market trends and future opportunities, secondary sources of data available. We have industry white papers from research firms, think tanks, news outlets, trend analysis websites, social listening tools, and then regulatory and environmental factors as well. You can find these types of data on government websites, industry associations. For every industry, there are associations, and they put out information or update on regulatory changes and compliance issues in the space. So that's a very good place to look at. Environmental analysis reports on the global market, on the global scale, and local to your ecosystem. And so I would say that this is the summarized conversation and point of what your market research should and can look like. Going over it again, it's 8 pointers that you consider: industry analysis, your target market and customer segmentation, competitive analysis, customer needs and pain points, pricing analysis, distribution and sales channel, market trends, regulatory and environmental factors. At any point in time, if you look at your market research and you see the areas that are lacking, it's good. That's the whole point of the template we provided. It's to help provide a more constructive way to see the areas of your market research that need work and the areas of your market research that with more information can enhance the way you navigate the space, and why those market research areas are helpful or important. And so at the end of the day, another way to also test if your market research supports your business direction is: one, does it validate against your business goals that you set? Did the research insights align with your growth goals? Two, customer persona clarity. At the end of your market research, did you or do you have a detailed, a more validated understanding of who your customer personas are? Three, your market entry strategies. Were you able to identify helpful or best entry points and channels to leverage on to promote your business? At least when you have an idea of them, even if it takes time and you have to build on them and grow on them over time till they pick up, at least you have some insight of what would work best based on data and what won't work so much. Adaptability to market stage. Does the research consider your business life stage? So as I mentioned to you, you also have to look at your business stage. Are you in startup stage? Are you in growth stage? Whatever stage you are in. For some, right, you'd notice that you can get primary data, and for some you can't get primary data because you probably haven't started yet, right? But then you apply it per what works for you. At the end of the day, does your market research consider your business life stage and how best you can apply the data to grow? And scenario planning: can the insights that you draw from your market research support alternative strategies or contingencies? And so I would say thank you all very much for being on the call today. I really do hope that you found this session insightful and helpful. So right here, you can follow us on our Instagram if you are looking to just follow up on updates, find out what new information we have in the space for entrepreneurs. We are at Musla HQ. You can just start with our Instagram channels. We do post updates from time to time, and we also provide very helpful information for entrepreneurs from time to time. So you can keep updated. And thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed today's session.
Thank you so much for your valuable insights, Manuela. It was really insightful. It was really groundbreaking how you made it so easy for us to understand exactly what you were speaking about. It's always a joy when we find a speaker who's so well articulate, who is able to even get us who are not tech savvy to understand exactly what is going on. And I hope entrepreneurs who are listening to us right now and who are watching can pick up some nuggets of wisdom and kind of understand exactly what you were speaking about. I just want to thank you for your time again, and I thank you for being so candid with us, for bringing us through this journey. And yeah, thank you for this time that you have spent with us.
Thank you too as well for the invitation.
No problem. All right, before I let you go, and before I end the stream, I just wanted to ask, is there any final nuggets that you want to give to people? If there's one final thing that they can take from this session?
Okay. I would say that at the end of the day, the reason why we have these sessions is because we want to encourage entrepreneurs to have a different look at what data can do for their business and how much of a difference it can make in their business. And this is important for us because we're saying that yes, you can go into the space and work with intuition, but what is even better is if you have data to back your intuition. And so we understand that for some entrepreneurs, they might be hesitant to actually get data backed strategies because sometimes, yes, you'll be surprised, but you wouldn't want the data to contradict your intuition or contradict what you think is the solution for the market. But why not find out, see if your assumptions align with the market, and then work with that to inform the way you go about the space. Being more proactive is better than being reactive, entering into the space, going in there and then finding out that this probably doesn't work. And it happens a lot. And so I'd say my takeaway for entrepreneurs is not to be afraid of the conversation of data. And even if it may not be as exhaustive as you want it to be, just the attempt, starting with being able to figure out simple ways that could work for you, it's helpful enough.
Thank you so much for that candidity and that nugget of wisdom. All right, to our viewers who are watching us across all our social media platforms, please do keep the social media buzz going. Please follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, and obviously on YouTube, where you can rewatch the session. Keep the hashtags going, SBF 2024, and the second one is hashtag Launchfest 2024. From me at Studio B today, I am signing out, and I hope you enjoyed today's session.
The Economic Week at the Startup Business Festival is where innovation meets opportunity. It's a deep dive into the engines of our economy, exploring how emerging financial technologies, market trends, and investment opportunities are reshaping the business landscape. This week is a platform for discussions around fintech access to capital and the strategic growth that fuels economic development. Together, we'll uncover the vast potential of the evolving financial sector and what it means for aspiring entrepreneurs and established businesses alike. In a world where access to finance can be a game changer, Economic Week is here to showcase how businesses can grow, thrive, and transform communities through strategic investments and smart, sustainable growth models. Join us as we spotlight the innovations, opportunities, and financial frameworks that are setting the stage for a prosperous future. This week, we're redefining economic potential at the Startup Business Festival.